I pulled the plug on my ex-boyfriend because he cheated. I'm currently 23, a nurse in Chicago, and I'm doing pretty well after this occurrence. So here's a little bit of a backstory. Grew up in a healthy household, middle class, straight-A student, and didn't have issues with anyone. Everyone liked me. Then I went to the carnival with my girls one day and saw this cute guy, Stefan. He was tall, had pale skin, blonde hair, and a fit body. He was with a couple of friends, we'll call him Matt and Toby. I told the other girls that he was cute and they told me to approach him. They said he couldn't decline someone like me since I was so perfect. I ended up going up to him, asking for his number, and he accepted. After that, we ended up hanging out a little bit at the carnival and had a great time. He asked me out on another date to Olive Garden, and I agreed. One day, I went to school and found out that one of my girls, Claire, talked to my ex. I flipped and wasn't okay with it. I told her I wasn't okay with it, but she told me she was her own person and had no regards to my feelings. What a bee. So me and the girls ended up leaving and going to my house and helping me get ready for the date. You will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. I got ready and wore this really cute dress with black heels and natural makeup. I met him there and he was so polite. He pulled the chair out for me, asked me questions, didn't use his phone once, and even paid. At the end of the night, he asked me to be his official girlfriend and I agreed. A few weeks went by and everything was fine. I still wasn't friends with Claire and neither were my girls, but we ended up just fine. She tried to apologize to me once, but I declined. One day, I got an ad on Snapchat from Matt. I said hi and asked if he needed anything. He told me he wanted to Netflix and chill and I declined. Questioned his best friendship with Stefan and he didn't care. Then I told Stefan and Stefan thanked me. A week later, Stefan started distancing from me. He didn't take me out on dates usually, text me as much, etc. One day I asked Matt where Stefan was and he said he was at some girl's house. He gave me the address and I realized it was to Claire's house. I started blowing up his phone by calling him, texting him, but he refused to answer. So I went to her house to see if it was true and you will not believe what happened. Come back for part 3. I got ready and wore this really cute dress with black heels and natural makeup. I met him there and he was so polite. He pulled the chair out for me, asked me questions, didn't use his phone once, and even paid. At the end of the night, he asked me to be his official girlfriend and I agreed. A few weeks went by and everything was fine. I still wasn't friends with Claire and neither were my girls, but we ended up just fine. She tried to apologize to me once, but I declined. One day, I got an ad on Snapchat from Matt. I said hi and asked if he needed anything. He told me he wanted to Netflix and chill and I declined. Questioned his best friendship with Stefan and he didn't care. Then I told Stefan and Stefan thanked me. A week later, Stefan started distancing from me. He didn't take me out on dates usually, text me as much, etc. One day I asked Matt where Stefan was and he said he was at some girl's house. He gave me the address and I realized it was to Claire's house. I started blowing up his phone by calling him, texting him, but he refused to answer. So I went to her house to see if it was true and you will not believe what happened. Come back for part 3. And I saw them kissing through the window. I went to his car and popped his tire because I was so mad. I went home later on and laughed about it. I didn't tell anyone though. Then while I was in science class, I got a text from Matt saying he was in the hospital. He had suffered from a severe car crash and was on machines. I didn't feel sad, but I asked him which one. He said North Haven, and so I went. I went there and felt bad. But then I got so mad and thought, what could I do to give him karma? So I leaned towards the plug and grabbed it. And then pulled it. I immediately stood up and pretended I fell on the wire. I screamed for help when they came running in. They told me I had to leave, and so I did. I blocked him on everything and never called him again. I don't know if he survived or not, but I never saw him again after that. This is my first time ever telling anyone else about it. Follow for more story times. I did stuff with my crush's cousin. So I used to have this best friend, let's call him Andy, and he had a twin brother named Sam. I met Sam and Andy through school and mutual friends. They were really quiet at first, but blossomed once they got to know me more. I was really close with Andy, but not so much Sam. He never favored me for whatever reason. One day, these two new dudes moved into my neighborhood. One of them was really cute. Let's name him Blue. And, well, he was a little older than me, but that didn't stop me. He was 17, and let's just say I was really young. I was really close with one of the brothers who was close to my age. Let's call him Jack. He caught feelings for me, and I had no idea. I found out that they were all cousins. Though I did like Blue, I already had a massive crush on Andy. But he was still stuck on his ex. I never liked her because she treated him like blank. Blue also cheated with Andy's ex. Let's keep that in mind. One day, Andy told me out of nowhere if he had to choose between me and Blue that he'd choose me, because Blue did him dirty multiple times. This made my heart flutter and strengthened my crush on him, I'm not gonna lie. It made me feel important, but I became really close with Blue, and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. He was calling me a blank and all these derogatory terms. He told me Blue would never blank a girl so ugly and that I needed to stop lying. I kept telling him to pass the phone to Andy, and he refused. I told Andy out of freaking respect. And for what? He ended up hanging up the phone, and when I checked later on, they all blocked me on Snap. When Andy blocked me at first, I didn't really put my mind to it, but then I started to get really depressed and sad, because I didn't know how much I was in love with him until he left. He ended up choosing Blue instead. He lied. It's been 2 years from that situation. I'm friends with Jake again, but not everybody else. Blue unblocked me and is still asking if we can mess around. I just ignore it. Moral of the story, always trust your friends. And follow for more story times. I think I accidentally killed someone. So it was my freshman year of high school, and me and my best friend Ava were excited to start. Me and Ava have been best friends since we were babies. We got along so well and did everything together. We got our lockers in the same hall and had 5 out of 7 classes together. High school was going good so far. Then one day, this girl named Emma walked up to us and said hi. She was the most popular girl in high school. Her and her other friends, Harper and Milo, were behind her. They invited her to lunch and she agreed just for one day. She asked me if it was okay and I said, yeah, it's fine. It's just for one day. Then the day after she went again, and again, and again. And we stopped talking. I walked up to her while she was talking to the popular girls, and Harper pushed me down and spilled drinks on me. Ava did nothing. We got into an argument and then they walked away. Then the bullying started. They bumped me into the halls, poured drinks on me, ripped up my notebooks, cut my hair, threw out my gym clothes, etc. One day, I walked into the school bathroom and Emma, Harper, and Milo were there, and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. They grabbed me by my hair and kept dumping my head into the toilet repetitively. I almost drowned, but luckily I didn't. I went to the principal's office hoping they would get suspended, but the next day nothing happened. So I decided to take this into my own hands, but I needed to figure out how. One day, I was scrolling through TikTok and saw some lady putting stuff into jars. I looked at the comments and everyone was talking about the energy they felt and how strong it was, and how scared they were for this person. I figured out it was witchcraft. I looked up revenge spells, curious, and found a thread on Reddit. I just needed the belonging of a person, a picture, date of birth on the back of a picture, a couple of candles, and once I was done to bury it at Crossroads. And so, I decided to do it on Emma. She was the problem and made my life blank. We had gym class together, so when she was in the gymnasium, I decided to take her hairbrush and use a class photo for it. I stalked her account on Instagram and her birthday was October 10th. I went home and I did it. I did the ritual and buried it at 3 a.m. at a crossroads. I left it and didn't look back as it said. I had a weird hunch, but I kept walking. The next day at school, the aura was weird, and you will not believe what happened. Come back for part 3. I asked some random girl what was wrong, and apparently Emma was in a coma from getting really sick overnight. Apparently she was coughing up blood and fainted. It was so bad that she was on machines and they didn't know if she'd survive. I was shocked. It worked. I felt kind of bad, but she deserved it. She was a bully to me and stole someone who I thought was my best friend, even though I can kind of thank her for that. After that, I stopped getting bullied. People were scared of me now, because she messed with me mainly and now she's on the verge of death. Emma didn't talk to me after. Fake A. Anyways, it's been 4 years now. I graduated and I'm going to become a therapist. She's still in a coma as far as I know, but I don't know if she'll wake up. Follow for more story times. My father was secretly in charge of a pedo ring. We were a pretty rich family and I got everything I wanted. I was constantly spoiled and never had to worry about what other families had to worry about. Whenever kids would ask me what my father did, I did self-employed because he never specifically told me what he did. Whenever I would ask him, he'd just say, "Self-employed, Sugar Plum, don't worry about it." And I just nodded. I didn't really care anyways. Kids bullied me at first, but I threw my money in their face to prove them wrong and even belittled those who bullied me. One day, I had an urge to find out what my father was doing. And I don't know why, but something was like telling me to. So when I went home, and my father wasn't home, just the maids, I went to his office and it was unlocked for once. That meant he was going to be home soon, so I had to be quick. Then I looked through his desk and found an orange folder. The rest were tan, but this one had a heart with a swirled heart around it and it was pink. I looked through it and saw a bunch of front and side shot pictures of little girls. They all looked very sad and I was confused. Why did he have this? I felt weird about it. So I tried to flip to the part where there was information and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. Father barged in and yelled at me. He smacked me across the face hard and told me to get out of the room. I cried and went to my room. Why was he being so mean to me? The next day at school, Mrs. Cecile called me over. She asked me why there's a bruise on my face and I told her. Cops then showed up in my elementary school and took me in for questioning. They asked me what happened and I told them everything. Folder, the symbol I saw, the girls, everything. I went home and my father wasn't there. I asked my mother, "Where's father?" She said, "That is no longer your father." I was confused and sad, but I didn't ask anything else. We moved to another state over and I never saw him again. I'm currently 16 years old now and realized what my father did was wrong. He took some of the missing girls in town and had customers do unimaginable things. He's in prison still and was sentenced for 50 years. The scariest part was, I could have been his next victim, since I remember seeing a photo of me in there as well. Turns out the heart symbol was as well a pedo trafficking symbol. I hope those kids were found and are okay. Lesson learned, be observant of your surroundings. Follow for more story times. Why you should never trust anyone online. I was 16 years old and a sophomore in high school. I was pretty and well known. Most people liked me, but I didn't think I was popular or anything like that, even though people thought I was. I didn't have a lot of social media, only Instagram. One day, someone requested to follow me on Instagram. I had 1,899 followers, so this would be my 900th. I vowed to never let anybody I didn't know follow, but I was desperate for that, and I accepted. They liked 5 of my photos and left comments about how pretty I was under it. I was happy. Then 1 hour later, they texted me. Their username was Troy_Brown03. And he said, "Hey, you're really beautiful. Can I get to know you?" I was a little hesitant to respond, but I responded. I said, "Thank you, sure." I looked at his profile and he was cute. He had brown curly hair, tan skin, icy blue eyes, a wide smile, and was tall. He was a surfer and he was so cute. Me and him started texting and flirting. He then liked every single one of my posts. He asked me if I went to my high school and I said yes, and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. He said he used to go there, but he transferred. I thought that was so cool. I looked for him in the yearbook and he wasn't there. I asked him why and he said he transferred mid-year, so he wasn't on record really. I didn't think anything suspicious of it. We talked more and more and he was perfect, and I think I started to fall in love here. Then one day my friend Chelsea was hosting a party. The party was really fun. I saw a text from Troy. He said he wanted to tell me he was there to meet. I was sad because I wanted to meet him, but I already went home. He agreed we would another time. He asked me if we could video call and I said yeah. His camera was on, but it was really blurry, but I could see the outlining of him, no details. I said hi and we started flirting. He then asked me if he could see some of me, like naked. And I didn't want to, but he kept asking me. He asked me 5 times that night, so I gave in. "Promise you won't tell anyone?" And he promised. I then lifted up my shirt and took off my bra. He was in awe and complimented me. We continued to flirt more and then I had to go to sleep and he said okay. One day, I was playing a game with my sister and he said he was outside my house. I was scared and confused because I never shared my address with him. I told my sister to call 911 if I started screaming. I looked around and you will not believe what happened. Come back for part 3. So I went outside and saw this really fat guy with acne and he looked nothing like Troy. He had black hair and green eyes. He said hi and I was shocked and ran back, but before I could get to my door, he grabbed my hand. I screamed so loud and struggled and punched him, right in the nose, and kicked him in the groin that he let go and I was able to go into my house. He started banging on my front door screaming to let him in because we were in love and we always wanted to meet. He said my body was beautiful and was going into details about my blank, shouting this out loud for the whole neighborhood to hear. I was embarrassed and told him to stop, but he didn't listen and continued. I told my sister to call 911 and she did, and I was crying. I couldn't believe I was catcalled. I really trusted him. The police came, arrested him, and questioned me. I got grounded for 5 months and had 0 socials. Lesson learned, always get a proper video call before meeting someone and never let anybody see your body unless you truly know who they are. Follow for more story times. I slept with my best friend's boyfriend and gave him and her an STD. It was like 2 years ago during junior year and I had just downloaded Tinder. Now I know I'm supposed to be 18, but I didn't care and continued talking to guys anyways. I eventually decided that I wanted to lose my virginity because my best friend had just gotten a boyfriend and lost hers. I didn't want to be a loser, so I gave in and finally met up with one of my Tinder matches. He was like 25? I don't really remember. His name was Joshua and he told me he was extremely experienced, so I felt like I was in good hands. We slept together and it actually went pretty well and we didn't use a condom. He bought me food after and then drove me home. I told my bestie and she was so proud of me and I felt like I could finally fit in. I wasn't at risk of being an outcast. So we decided to go get this little get-together at some kid's house where there was tons of booze and marijuana. Obviously, I didn't bring any, so I just used what was provided. I got cross-faded really bad and my best friend's boyfriend decided to help me upstairs and get into bed so I didn't puke all over myself. He started rubbing my feet and telling me to relax, but we couldn't stop laughing because we were both so effed up really bad. Eventually, he got into bed with me and started playing with my hair and stuff, and I felt kind of bad because I knew what I was doing. You will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. I started to not care and wasn't thinking straight or anything like that, so we had blank. We actually kept meeting up doing hookups afterwards, like after school and at the park and up in my room when my dad was gone. It started getting serious. I felt horrible because this was my best friend's boyfriend, but I couldn't stop myself. He also told me if I ever told her, he'd never speak to me again and I was low-key in love with him. So I continued the secret meets and hooking up. About a month in, I started getting really bad rashes on my, and bad discharge. So I went to the hospital. Turns out I had gonorrhea from the dude I slept with when I lost my virginity. I told my bestie without thinking, and she told me she was experiencing the same thing. And so was her boyfriend. Not too long after, she put the pieces of the puzzle together and realized we were hooking up. She was pretty upset. We all got treated and got better, but she broke up with her boyfriend and then blocked me on everything and told the whole entire school I'm a disgusting blank. I had literally no friends for the next year, and her ex wouldn't even speak to me. Follow for more story times. I'm the murderer of my best friend's dog. I used to be friends with this girl, let's call her Katrina, for 4 years, and we got along pretty well. We liked the same color, food, had the same music taste, and fashion. I had bipolar disorder at the time, keep in mind you. I was 15 at the time and she was 16. She joined the cheer squad and then she started distancing from me. One day I went to her house because she hadn't been contacting me at all, and I asked her what was wrong and she claimed she thought I was busy, even though the cheer squad was behind her. I started complaining about how she never talks to me anymore and how I felt. She disregarded my feelings and said that I wasn't cool. I just stared at her. She literally became the people you used to make fun of. I told her she'd regret this and she laughed and said, okay, we'll see. I went back home and couldn't think of anything. The next day at school, her and the cheer squad were laughing at me and making fun of me. I just looked at them and looked away. They would make fun of me on the regular, and it bothered me at first, not going to lie, but I moved forward. I started to hate Katrina. I wanted to punch her in the face and make her cry. One day, Katrina's parents called me, and you will not believe what they said. Come back for part 2. This girl I knew was a racist and running a slave house. It was my freshman year and we were doing a project in chemistry. It was a group project and the teacher gave us a week to work on it. Let's call this girl Caroline. Caroline was pretty rich. She lived in a mansion, and her father owned a jewelry company that was notorious for their rings. There were a couple of rumors about her being racist, but she was so nice and there was never any proof for it. I usually don't believe in rumors without proof. So before time ran out of class, she offered to continue the project at her house. I was the only person that could go, so I agreed. She said she'd pick me up at 3 p.m. and we would stay for however long I wanted. The next day, I got ready and she texted me she was outside. I walked out and she was in a limousine that was white with gold rims. I entered the car and told her this was nice and she said thank you. She gave me ice cream and we talked. We got along pretty well. We ended up arriving and there was this beautiful mansion. The grass was green, the roses were red, everything was so nice. There was a tree a little bit in the backyard and there was a rope hanging from it. I was confused, but I brushed it off. The driver was black and a black woman opened our car door. She guided us to the front area and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 2. There were a bunch of maids lined up to say hello. It was only black maids though. They were dark skin or brown skin, nothing above or in between. It was really odd because I thought there would be some diversity. I brushed it off and didn't pay attention. Walked down the hall and saw certain flags that made me uneasy. I saw a Confederate flag, swastika symbol, a Donald Trump flag. She said these flags sucked and made her uncomfortable and I just nodded. So then we went to her room and it was so nice. It was pink, white, and gold. We sat down and did our project. Her father knocked and walked in. He saw me and stared at me for a moment and was confused. Are you one of the workers' daughters? Before he could finish, Caroline grabbed his arm and walked away with him. I'm black, keep in mind too. If that already wasn't obvious. I was offended by this and put my ear against the door and heard a little bit of the conversation. She said she brought me over because rumors were going around that she was racist. He said okay as long as I don't carry any diseases. She came in and apologized and I said it's okay. Just as I was about to say I wanted to leave, the father came in and offered to stay for dinner. And I said sure. Maybe he was trying to be polite after all. You will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 3. We finished our project around 6 p.m. and it was time for dinner. She walked me down the hall, same flags, and walked me into the dining room. The table was long, the plates were plated in gold and white, and the food looked so good. It was steak, asparagus, grapes, a salad, and some water, and some type of homemade juice. It was just maids setting down the table, but they were just black. Again. I sat down and continued eating my food. The father asked me if I liked it, and I said I did. He said I was grass-fed and high quality and that this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So after a black maid came into the room and began pouring his wine, she accidentally spilled it on him and he screamed, "This is why I can't stand your people, you N-word." And he took off his belt and whipped her. I got up and ran out of the room. Caroline was running after me until I eventually ran out of the house. I managed to call my mom to get me an Uber and went back home. That was one of the most disturbing experiences in my life, and I don't ever want to experience that again. I never talked to her again. She paid me $300 not to say anything, but I said something anyways. Lesson learned, stick with your own folks. Just kidding. Follow for more story times. I waited for my wedding to confront my cheating fiancé. So I met this guy named Carson, and we met at Chili's, and he was a server. When I looked at the receipt, he left me his number. I left cash and a $10 tip. After that, I texted the number saying hey, and he said hey with a winky face back. We went on dates, vacations, we even graduated together and got our bachelor's degree. We soon got a house and a dog together and our life was perfect. One day, my best friend called me to go to the beach and I did. I got out of the car and saw him in the parking lot standing in a circle of roses. He grabbed my hand, brought me into the circle, and got down on one knee. He proposed. I said yes. Everyone was recording, my mom, sister, dad, best friend, and friends. We had a picnic on the beach after to celebrate. Everything was fine after that. We planned the wedding. He didn't take me out on dates much and hung out with his friends a lot. He was probably planning the wedding. One day while I was doing laundry, I got a whiff of his shirt and it smelled like perfume. A fruity one. Not one I'd wear. I examined it more and it had a red mark on it, but I didn't want to assume. So while he was taking a shower one day, I checked his texts. And you will not believe what I saw. Come back for part 2. This girl Vanessa was texting a lot and I read some of their texts and it was very graphic. I was confused. They said hello at first, but they started flirting and they even exchanged nudes. It turns out they had been going on dates weekly and I was so hurt and heartbroken. He texted her that he was going to leave me for her and he only wanted my money once we got divorced. I started crying, but I didn't want him to see me crying, so I got in my car and drove off. I called my best friend and told her to meet me at Starbucks. I explained to her what happened. She was so mad. She was about to call him, but I told her to wait. What if we made a plan? Something that could embarrass him? And she agreed. We came up with the best plan for the wedding. I wasn't going to let my wedding dress and revenue go to waste. I went back home and went to bed. 3 weeks later, the wedding was going well. Everyone was there, including Vanessa. I said hello to her and squeezed her hand pretty hard. I was in my gorgeous wedding dress and makeup just to show him what he could have had. I went to my best friend and said, "You got everything?" And she said, "Yeah." We both giggled and went our separate ways. Then, the wedding began. Everyone was in their places and my father began walking me down the aisle. I had an evil smile on my face and you will not believe what happened next. Come back for part 3. Someone was confused but smiled. We held hands and I stared into his eyes. He read his vow, but I claimed I was too emotional to read mine, even though I lied. He then said, "I do." And I paused before I could say mine and said, "I want to show you all something first. Best friend will be passing around the good news. Don't open them until I say go." So my best friend had a stack of folders in her hands and passed them out to every person. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Everyone opened them and everyone's faces turned to shocked. Some people gasped in horror. The folder contained printed out text messages of Carson and Vanessa flirting and their nudes. Carson looked around in confusion and grabbed his best man's folder and saw. He looked back at me with his mouth wide open. Next thing you know, my father sucker punched him in the face and had to be held back by my brothers. Carson ran out the altar. Vanessa sat there in shock. I went over to her and slapped her and called her a homewrecker. She left crying and they were never to be seen again. Karma is by far the best revenge. Follow for more story time.